This is one of the most beautiful servers on all of Minecraft. With over 400 players daily, it's time for us to check out the server. This is the server review series where we rate servers based on 5 key elements: gameplay quality, community and moderation, performance, visual design, and replayability. But first, let's hear more about Mindbox. Mindbox is a combination of a Skyblock and an MMORPG. Your main goal is to reach level 100 and expand your island as much as you can, and the server is also multi-language compatible. Mindbox aims to make the server a game in its own right with its plethora of unique content, which is completely exclusive to the server, and I've got to say, they do achieve this. But before we proceed, if you guys are enjoying the video, please make sure that you do drop a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and helps me grow. Even if Mindbox isn't for you, I could review another server that might be right down your alley, so it's important that you stay up to date with all the latest videos. But let's get straight into the gameplay. So going into the gameplay quality, I just want to start by just quickly saying that MMOs aren't really my sort of thing. I've not played them growing up, so I don't really understand the elements to a certain degree. I know that you get levels and you level them up and you grind, and I know the whole point of the server and MMOs is to basically grind to get to the top. That being said though, the gameplay can be quite a bit of a grind. I mean, in some ways that's perfect for me because I've been grinding through life without actually getting any rewards or XP for it, but at the end of the day, it's still a game. Now, the server feels like a very slow start, which may be the intention, but it also blurred the lines a little bit too much between being an RPG, MMO, and also being a Skyblock. You get your own island instead of actually having a Skyblock, and the first thing you are told to do is destroy part of your island to be able to proceed in the MMO, which I don't really understand. I need to earn certain rewards to be able to use them on the main island to break down the trees and to collect lilies and to kill monsters. If I just made a sword, couldn't I just go and do that myself? Or am I being forced to go down this route? Now, I understand the crafting is done through this, which is quite interesting, and I do quite like that. But it took me about 30 to 40 minutes of playing the server to actually get into a flow state where I was enjoying myself. And this isn't just my opinion. I was playing with one of my friends at the time, and he was also having the exact same feeling. He was quite frustrated at the fact that he couldn't just go in and start playing on the MMO world. He had to destroy his beautiful island to actually proceed. Also, while I was playing, I saw a few people saying in the chat in the game that it was basically a farming simulator. Now, I'm not sure if this is a joke at the fact that it's basically a grind, or the fact that I am meant to just grow wheat to sell. I don't really understand. I can understand why people might find this appealing, but for me, the gameplay just isn't there. It wasn't as enjoyable as I thought it would be. Now, I will say that I'm stood here after playing for an hour and a half, and now I'm thinking about going back and playing the MMO part, because the MMO part was actually enjoyable. But to get to that bit, you have to go through such a grind that if I wasn't doing a review, I would have left because I wasn't drawn in. I was told to go to my island and destroy it for resources to then do the MMO. To me, that doesn't make sense. I think the early game needs to be addressed quite a bit. But overall, the actual gameplay itself, once you get into it, isn't too bad. But purely down to the fact that the beginning is such a slow introduction and, to be honest, quite painful, I can't rate it that highly. For me, I'm going to put the gameplay quality at a 6, and I feel bad putting it there because once I get past a certain point, I did quite enjoy it. But for me, I just can't rate it higher because of how long it took me to get to that point. And the fact that I know that if I wasn't going to continue playing on the server and I wasn't doing a review, I wouldn't have even got to that enjoyable part. I don't think I can say in good faith that I can rate it higher than a 6. So let's have a look at the community and moderation, because this is a big community. This server has over 400 players, and I was playing on off-peak hours. And the fact that the server actually goes across multiple languages is a massive benefit and a negative in some regards. How close-knit is the community is really something to be said. There is a feature where if you kill something, you get your own loot and somebody can't come along and steal it, which is nice. It removes a toxic element that the community could have had. So I'll give the developers credit in that regard. Now, overall, while I was fighting some monsters on the island, I did see a few people come over and help me kill them, which was really nice. They would have noticed I was a low level. So in that regard, the community is quite nice. Now, I don't really know enough about the community as a whole, but I know that overall, this server has been in development for quite a while, and there's been a lot of hype around it. And the fact that the community is so active, even after the first few weeks of the server being out, it must mean that the community is good to a certain degree. I didn't see any arguments in the chat, and I didn't see any abuse of power. I overall got quite a friendly vibe. There are a few people that would have jokes at each other's expense, but I would mainly put that down to banter and probably just a loving part of the community and having a bit of a joke. Now, overall, because I don't know enough about the community, I don't feel comfortable giving it a 10. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10 on the community and moderation, because overall, I do think the community has a lot of room to grow and to become more close-knit. And overall, I didn't have a bad experience, but I just think because of the community size and because of my playtime, I can't really give it a 10. So I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. And yeah, really decent community. Recommend you guys go and check them out. So performance is where this server is going to struggle. Obviously, I understand that there are over 400 players on the server. Now, I obviously played with a friend on here, so I do kind of feel like I can criticize the performance a little bit more than I would if it was just me. I noticed that the loading times going between my island and another island were quite high, if I'm completely honest. And I know this is down to player count, and I know this is down to how the server is laid out, but it was longer than I would expect. There were also moments where I and my friend were also experiencing some block lag. And this is down to the fact that there's so many players on the island and on the server as a whole, so I do completely understand that. But also, if the server has that many players, surely you'd put things in place to improve performance to a certain degree. I don't think that the server by any means was super laggy or it would put players off. It was just small little bits of lag, and trust me, I've played so many servers that are way more laggy than this one with even an eighth of the player count. So they have done really well at optimizing. I'm going to give the performance a 9 out of 10 because there was a little bit of lag, but I'm also really understanding of the fact that there are over 400 players on the server. So I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10 just because of the fact that there is a little bit of lag, but I'm going to give it some leeway just down to the fact of the player count. Now, visual design is where this server really does stand out. It is by far one of the most beautiful servers I've ever seen. And if I'm completely honest, I spent more time looking at everything around than actually playing the game. It says a lot about my priorities, I will admit, but the server itself was that beautiful. And to be honest, just walking into it kind of felt like I was stepping into my own fantasy world, which is great because it's honestly the closest I've been to going outside in like the last probably 3 months. But overall, just the entire design was so sleek. The actual menus and just the hotbar, for example, was really, really slick. It's by far the best part of the server, just how good it looks. And that's actually why I was quite annoyed at the fact that I had to destroy part of my island. I didn't want to destroy it. I wanted to preserve it and keep it safe. And I wanted to build on it to make it look beautiful. I didn't want to have to dig up the floor to get some iron in the first 5 minutes. The server suffers from that. It suffers from the fact it's so beautiful you don't want to break it. The pop-up animations on the level ups are great. All of the monsters and enemies that you can fight are all unique. They look incredible. They have different attacks. They have different elite attacks, I would call them. Overall, everything's unique. Everything is special and exclusive to the server, and that's what makes it so good. And that's why I'm giving visual design a 10 out of 10. If I could give it an 11 out of 10, I would. But it's actually that beautiful that even if you don't like MMOs, it's worth just checking out the server for at least an hour just to look at how beautiful it is, because you won't find another server like it. If I'm honest, I'm a little bit upset at the fact I found the server, because now I feel like everyone I go on is not going to live up to the expectation of how beautiful this server was. But yeah, 10 out of 10 on the visual design. Absolutely beautiful. 100% recommend. Now, let's go and look at replayability. Replayability is probably the thing that you'd think the server would shine at the most, considering it's an MMO. Now, I do agree that there is a lot to do. There are a lot of quests. There are a lot of things that you can do. But I think the server suffers from the fact that it takes so long to actually do the tutorial / beginner quests that I don't want to get to the point where I'm playing replayable content and different content, because I got so bored doing that early on part that I don't think I would stay long enough to get to there. I mean, I didn't even finish the starter quests because they took so bloody long. I got to level 4, was told to craft a watering can that I was then told I couldn't use until I was level 5. So I don't really know where to go from there. I've then got to go and level up in my own time when I should actually have a linear path through these quests because they're starter and tutorial quests. Overall, the replayability is just not really there for me. I think there's an infinite amount of content that you could play the server infinitely if you really wanted to, but that content is just not that entertaining to start with. And I don't really have enough faith in the server as a whole to bring me back in with that content. The most important part of the server and the most important content you should have is your tutorial content. It teaches you what to do and it should get you hooked on the server. And this server just didn't do it. It didn't get me hooked at all until I was about an hour in. And at that point, I would have left. So for replayability for me, I'm going to give that a 6 out of 10 as well. It feels harsh considering there is actually an infinite amount of content in the server for you to enjoy. But I just don't think your average player would get to that point. I know saying that there's 400 players on the server means that there's obviously people that are interested in that. But for me, it just wasn't there. And maybe it's the fact I don't like MMOs, but it just didn't sit right for me. And I just didn't really enjoy the replayable side of the server that much. Overall, I think Mindbox is one of those servers that you kind of need to like an MMO to enjoy. For me, I'm not really a massive fan of MMOs, so it's a little bit difficult for me to give a non-biased opinion on this. Everyone has their own personal preferences, and if you're a big Windcraft player, for example, and you want to try out a different experience, maybe this is a server for you to try. If it's just something where you like to go on, kill some monsters, have a bit of fun, and you want something to play in the background while you're watching a show, this is also a server that you would enjoy. If you're not a massive fan of building, you'd probably enjoy this server too. This is probably also a great server that you could go to meet friends and make new ones, or play with a group of 5 or 6 people when you don't really enjoy the survival side of Minecraft. But if we add up all the scores from what I've rated the server on, overall the server gets an 8 out of 10, which I think is quite reasonable. I think considering how good the server looks, I think it should be up there to a certain degree, and I think the performance in the community also put it up. For me, the gameplay and the replayability is personally down to my personal preference, and the fact that I'm not a massive MMO player I think really contributes to that. Some people might come in and say that they really enjoy the server, and I'd be interested to know from you guys if you actually have played the server and if you enjoyed it. It's free to play, the IP's down below, so you guys can just go check it out, and I'd really like to know what you guys think. Do you guys think that my opinion is too harsh, or do you think that it's actually quite justified? But that has been the review for Mindbox. If you guys have enjoyed, make sure you do drop a like and subscribe, and stay tuned for other server reviews. I'm going to try and get these out as much as possible, so make sure you leave servers that you recommend down below. I read every single comment, and I do intend to check out all of the servers that you guys suggest, so make sure you do leave them. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.